Unfortunately, Prince Andrew was totally different. He could fly off the handle at the smallest thing. He would be abusive. He would shout, he would swear. So we had a particular issue with Prince Andrew.
What if the most dangerous predator inside the palace walls wasn't a scandal, a rival, or a headline, but a 65-year-old man terrified of a nylon tie? Buckle up, A-listers, because we're pulling back the velvet rope on the royal staff's worst nightmare. A man whose fall from grace is being soundtracked not by a funeral march, but by the gleeful sighs of relief from every butler, maid, and secretary he ever terrorized. Prince Andrew's eviction from royal life is complete, but the real story is the brutal, bizarre, and often hilarious revenge of the people he spent a lifetime tormenting. This is a masterclass in how entitlement implodes and why sometimes karma doesn't wear a crown, she wears a uniform and finally gets to say, no, sir. Quick favor, if you live for this level of royal reckoning, hit that subscribe button. If you did, welcome to the inner circle where we actually respect the help. Now let's get into the dirt that someone else now has to clean up. To understand the sheer seismic joy of Andrew's downfall, you have to understand the world he ruled, or thought he ruled. For decades, inside the gilded cage of Royal Lodge, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor wasn't just a prince. He was a petty tyrant with a teddy bear fetish. We're not talking about a tough boss. We're talking about a man whose daily demands read like a villain's to-do list in a bad pantomime. According to explosive new accounts from staff and the scathing biography entitled by Andrew Lowney, Andrew's management style was a blend of schoolyard bully and deranged interior decorator. His signature catchphrase, "Do it," barked up staff as if they were naval recruits, not human beings. He would allegedly scream and shout if his collection of 72 teddy bears wasn't arranged on his bed with military precision. A process so complex, new maids reportedly needed a full day of training and a laminated instruction sheet to get it right. Imagine spending your life in service, having tended to kings and queens, only to be reduced to a plush toy platoon commander. The humiliation wasn't a bug in his system, it was the operating system. But the teddy bears were just the fluffy tip of the iceberg. Andrew's cruelty was creative, personal, and staggeringly petty. He didn't just fire people, he banished them for aesthetic crimes. According to multiple reports, he had a staff member removed from his post because he couldn't bear to look at a mole on the man's face. Another was dismissed for the unforgivable sin of wearing a nylon tie. This is a man for whom human beings were decor items. If they clashed, they were discarded. His verbal abuse was legendary. In one chilling incident at Hillsborough Castle, he allegedly reduced a veteran staffer to tears, calling him a fucking imbecile for daring to refer to the late Queen Mother by her public title instead of the in-house version. This wasn't just anger, it was a performance of power, a reminder that in his presence, you were less than the dirt he'd make you clean up. He was, in the words of one former schoolmate, a very slimy so-and-so, arrogant, pleased with himself, a bully. Now, let's talk about the glorious, delicious, long-awaited payback. Because when the king finally stripped Andrew of his royal titles and pulled the plug on his taxpayer-funded lifestyle, the staff didn't just watch him fall, they gave him a helpful nudge. Reports emerged that when the newly dethroned Mr. Mountbatten Windsor visited Windsor Castle after his title loss, the guards pointedly refused to salute or call him Your Royal Highness. The ultimate insult? Cutting off his privilege of having food delivered from the castle kitchens. As one columnist sarcastically noted, there is a Pizza Express in Windsor Town Center, a brutal callback to his infamous alibi in the Epstein scandal. This is the revenge of the silent class. For years, they bowed, they curtsied, they arranged his bears while he slept. Now, with the palace's protection vanished, they finally got to look him in the eye and see not a prince, but a pathetic, powerless man. The deference was a contract, and Andrew breached every clause. This brings us to the billion-pound question. How did he get away with it for so long? The answer lies in a system rotten with protection and willful blindness. Andrew Lowney's research suggests this behavior was open secret at the highest levels. The biography claims that complaints about Andrew's bullying and financial dealings were made for years, but people who spoke up were allegedly penalized, shuffled off to distant posts, or sidelined. The author even asserts that the late Queen Elizabeth II was very well briefed on his activities, yet a culture of never explain, never complain allowed the problem to fester. The institution protected its own, even when that own was a liability of epic proportions. Andrew wasn't a rogue agent. He was a product of a system that believed its own myths of superiority and invincibility. He was, in essence, the monarchy's id, all its unchecked privilege and arrogance, wandering around in a naval uniform, throwing tantrums. But here's the twist in this gilded tragedy. As Andrew prepares for his internal exile to a smaller house on the Sandringham estate, reports say he is playing hardball, demanding a guaranteed staff roster from King Charles, a cook, a housekeeper, a secretary, gardeners. The delusion is breathtaking. It's the ultimate display of a man who has learned nothing. He's not contrite, he's contractual. He still sees service as his divine right, not a privilege he forfeited through his own vile behavior. Meanwhile, the staff who once trembled at his "do it" now have a new mantra: not for you. The power dynamic has irrevocably flipped. The man who once made people recoil from a mole or a tie is now the one being inspected and found desperately, pathetically wanting. So what's the final fitting fate for Air Miles Andy, his buffoon highness, the Duke of Dirty Tissues? He's not just moving house, he's becoming a museum piece of bad behavior. His story is no longer of royal intrigue, but a case study in how ugly character, when indulged by a broken system, inevitably leads to a lonely, ridiculous end. He'll be remembered not for service, but for soiled tissues and stuffed animals, not for diplomacy, but for diatribes about neckwear. The palace staff, the silent witnesses to it all, have had the last laugh. They've shown that true power isn't in a title you're born with, it's in the dignity you carry and the respect you earn. And on that score, Prince Andrew is utterly, completely bankrupt.